All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Daily doing my preview and prediction for Tennessee versus Pittsburgh. Vols 6-7 point favorites as they go on the road to Pittsburgh. 65.5 over under 3:30 p.m. Eastern time on ABC. We'll be carrying this one. Pitt leads the all-time series 3-0. They won 41-34 a season ago. Looking at the Tennessee offense, Hendon Hooker 18-25, 221. He had 4 total touchdowns last season. You know, him and Josh Heupel really have been clicking since they arrived here together last offseason. The biggest thing is he did not turn over the ball last year. Hendon Hooker barely made a mistake, it seemed like. Only had a handful of interceptions. With 31 or 3 TD to INT ratio is absolutely absurd. He had no picks last week, so that's a flawless start for him pretty much. He's a really good runner, but he's really developed as a passer, and he's going to continue to do so this year. And that's his role in this offense, is to throw the football. He's certainly got some wheels, though, if he needs to use them. Very tough football player as well. I expect him to be out there gunning with his teammates for a full 4 quarters, no matter what the battle is. 218 rushing yards in week 1 for this team. 3 different backs saw 10-plus carries. Jabari Small, we expected him to kind of be the featured back, but that wasn't the case. Jalen Wright had the touchdown, led the team with 88 yards. Small on the same amount of carries, 13, had 63 and a score of his own. Then Dylan Simpson got in as well. Wasn't as efficient, but he also found the end zone once. So we'll see what happens with this backfield. It's nice to see they have a handful of options. This is an offense they like to move in a hurry. 51 attempts rushing the ball last week. Of course, that's not going to be the norm. I don't think. They're obviously playing a Ball State, and they beat them pretty handily. But it's nice to see they have some options here. The run game is going to be a crucial part of this offense, even though they're going to want to throw the rock. They're going to want to move fast. Cedric Tillman, he figures to be unleashed in this game, 6'3", 215. He's tough to handle, He's going to really seeing who's going to emerge as the number 2 is the biggest thing, though. Is it going to be Bru McCoy, Jalen Hyatt, Jimmy Holiday, and Ramel Keaton, though. Those guys had 4 receptions each, which was second on the team. So they're starting to get some guys involved here that you really haven't heard of before. At least in that Ball State game, they're trying to take advantage of it. But I'd expect a heavy dosage of McCoy, Tillman, Hyatt as the top 3 pass catchers in this ball game. Biggest thing to watch is this offensive line. They were not good one bit last year. They figured to be pretty outmatched against a phenomenal Pitt defensive line. But one way to really neutralize that is, it's perfect for this offense. They can neutralize it very easily with the up-tempo offense they roll out with. They move in a hurry. They had to do 3 plays per minute, I think was the average last year for them. They get moving and they can do it in a hurry, especially when they're ahead of the sticks. So that's going to be a great opportunity there for them to neutralize it. Not every offense has that opportunity, so I think Tennessee, they're going to try to maximize that as much as they can. Looking at the Pittsburgh offense, the offensive scheme wasn't consistent week 1. Frank Cignetti Jr. comes over, as does USC transfer Keaton Slovis to replace Kenny Pickett and Mark Whipple. It was a strange ask, though, from this offense. They're in I formation a lot. You don't see it much. But, they're in I running the football a considerable amount. And they really didn't do it that strong. They only had about 76 yards on the ground. Keaton Slovis, obviously, minus 20 yards. That didn't help the total any. But still, they weren't running very efficiently at all. 2 yards per carry as a team. Rodney Hampton, though, he was great. 120-plus yards. He found the end zone twice there in the opener. This is a pretty deep backfield, though. Israel Abanikanda, he's the guy they like to get involved in. Carter as well. This is a deep backfield for Pittsburgh. They also have another guy they get involved as well, but I think they're pretty beat up in that area as well. Vincent Davis, that is. Yeah, he's been around a while. But I like this Pitt offense. The play action was really working, despite the running rather not being that great. They were still able to make plays through the air off that play action. 300-plus yards for Slovis. Jared Wayne's a veteran alongside 2 transfers, and Keontae Mumpfield and Bub Means, who he made plenty of mistakes. He can win with his vertical speed. He had a drop. He also had a fumble. Means, I expect him to do a lot better than that here in this ball game. So it's interesting to see what happens with Pitt, because if they can't run the ball, last week obviously they played a very tough defensive line, especially on the interior in West Virginia. And this offensive line, they get 5 starters back. They still struggled last week, and they weren't great. Last year, that's kind of one of their weaknesses on offense. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, because Keaton Slovis, he did not make great decisions. He doesn't have much speed at all. He's not very mobile, so they're going to have to avoid pockets getting collapsed. That's going to be a season thing to watch. I'm not really too worried about it in this ball game. But both teams are not great up front. They got plenty of playmakers, plenty of weapons, so I think both of these offenses are going to have plenty of success. Looking at the Tennessee defense, Byron Young, Tyler Barron, the only real edge presence for the Vols. Last week, though, they didn't perform very well. Only 2 tackles for loss for the team, 0 sacks. How much will the interior D-line improve, though? Because that's an area of concern kind of coming into the year. They got guys like Omari Thomas, Elijah Simmons, who he made some plays. Other than that, though, who's going to step up here outside of Barron and Young, and then some guys at linebacker? It's kind of a concern with this defense all around. I do like Mitchell. He's a veteran. I believe he was the Texas transfer from last year. Aaron Beasley. They got a handful of veterans in the middle of their defense. But outside of the two guys, and Young and Byron, who's going to step up on the D-line to help them out? Because pass rush wasn't all that terrific a season ago, other than those two guys. And it doesn't help them that their secondary was one of the nation's worst against the pass. They did struggle against Pitt last fall, 300-plus yards and 3 scores to Kenny Pickett. Both offenses in that game were very good. But this Tennessee defense, a lot of people have expectations for this team, and I understand because this offense is going to be really good. But overall, the defense, very concerning, and they have not been really recruiting that side of the ball so far very well. Obviously, it's still, it's only a year or two in Josh Heupel's tenure, but still, this defense for the future is not looking great, especially in this game, though. I don't think the matchup really suits them one bit. Jalen McCullough, Trevon Flowers, a handful of veterans there, and Warren Burrow at corner. I believe he led the team in tackles last week in the opener. It's going to be interesting what happens with the defense. Banks is a heck of a playmaker, and again, those two edge rushers are really going to lead the charge. But other than that, if Pitt starts to do the same thing, they're starting to run the ball and they're churning it out on the ground, that play action is really just going to be tearing this Tennessee defense apart. There's nothing they're really be able to do about it because they were making waves against West Virginia, and they weren't even running the ball that well. So big concern with the Vols defense this season. Looking at the Pittsburgh defense, they've one of the nation's best defensive lines. They completely dominated West Virginia, 8 tackles for loss. They should have had a lot more, too. They were just living in the backfield, really. And just the reason I love this D-line coming into the year is how versatile and how deep they are. Because you got guys like Kalijah Cansey, Maldonado is a superstar. Both of those guys are going to be high-end draft picks. But you have John Morgan, who had a forced fumble and 3 tackles for loss. Deslin Alexander, he got hurt in that game, but he is a team captain, a multi-team captain, I believe. David Green, he's also got some nice size as well at 6'1", 280. He's a guy that I like to get involved. This D-line's not very tall, and they're not very big, but they got a lot of skill, and they got a lot of depth. So I think that's something that's really going to be key in this game because this Tennessee O-line was not good last year, and I don't expect them to be too over the top this fall either. You look at Servassier Dennis, a linebacker. He's a phenomenal playmaker for them. I thought Shane Simon made some good efforts in coverage. The Notre Dame transfer coming over, he was big for them in that game, I thought at times. And then I think overall, though, kind of like with Tennessee, this secondary for Pitt, they're no greatness either. They have playmakers, guys like Brandon Hill, but they struggled big time last year, especially in this game. I remember in the first quarter, Tennessee had guys running wide open, it seemed like on every single play, but they just could not put it on him. Joe Milton, he just seemed to overthrow everybody. But guys like Eric Hallett, Brandon Hill, A.J. Woods, these guys are good ball players. I know, last week against Bryce Ford Wheaton, they struggled a good bit. And, even though on the stat sheet they looked good, there were still times where they were, not covering all that well, making mistakes, penalties and whatnot. So Pat Narduzzi, that's not typical of a defense of him coaching. The secondary is usually pretty stout, and he didn't bring in anybody new in the back end in terms of transfers, and I think they only added like 1 freshman, so he's very confident in this group to continue to grow, and I think they will. This will be a great game to find out what they'll be able to do. Again, though, the best way for Tennessee to kind of neutralize this D-line is to go hurry up and stick to your offensive game plan, go really fast with a lot of tempo, and you got to be successful doing so, and that'll be a great way to neutralize these guys who are going to be living in the backfield, I think. Looking at team comparisons, I'm going to give Hendon Hooker the edge at quarterback. And then his pass catchers as well. I like Cedric Tillman. I think he's the best pass catcher in this game. I think that Pittsburgh has a better starting 3 than Tennessee does because they're still trying to figure that out, even though it's quite clear for Pittsburgh. But Cedric Tillman gives them the edge, I would say, in that area. Looking at the offensive line, neither are really great, but I think Pitt has a slight edge there. I think they all have a lot of returning starters, but I think Pittsburgh's offensive line was much better last year. And I thought they're better. Just on paper, really, they're better because obviously last week Ball State wasn't a great matchup. To test that, West Virginia, I thought they had some good success. I'll give the Marcus Minor-led Panther offensive line the edge. Defensive line, not a contest one bit. Obviously, 2 great edge rushers for Tennessee and Young and Barron, rather. But Pittsburgh, they're one of the nation's best. They're going to win that when it comes to team comparisons each week this year, really. Linebacker as well. There's veterans there for Tennessee. Jeremy Banks is probably the best player in the field for the Volunteers. And Juwan Mitchell, he's going to get unleashed this year, it looks like. But Servassier Dennis, Shane Simon, you throw in Kamara as well. The linebackers are phenomenal there for the Panthers. And then the secondary, I'm going to give them the edge there just because I like their playmaking more. Brandon Hill specifically, I want to single him out. He's just a heck of a guy for them at safety. I think he's going to have a big-time season. And then, MJ Devonshire, of course, had the 56-yard pick 6. So they got some guys that can come in and make plays. Tennessee, Secondary is kind of a struggle area. Look at my final thoughts on the prediction on this game. Keys to this game, I've been saying it all pod, quickly move downfield and allow tempo to wear down that D-line. That's going to be your best chance for your offensive front to not get out-muscled. Pitt, get off the field on third down, run the ball more efficiently. That's a great counter. Just get off the field. And then running it more efficiently is something I want to see if you're going to stick to this I-formation type scheme. And I think you'll be very successful if they can do that, year-round, running the ball well and utilizing play action. It seems to really fit Keaton Slovis's play style. Keep him in the pocket as well. I think those are great keys for this ball game. It's going to be a fun one. I have Pittsburgh winning 40-34, very similar as last year. I think both offenses will have success. Both secondaries struggled in this game a season ago, and I think they will continue to do so. But I do think that the Pitt defensive front, they're going to have a field day. That certainly helps this D-line make some plays with Tennessee. They're not going to go away without a fight, so I do see them putting up, a handful of touchdowns in this one. So it should be a fun game on Saturday. Ranked contest. Tennessee should not be favored by 6 or 7 points. They're going on the road. That's kind of ridiculous, but the bookies always know best, so I'll trust what they put because there's some magicians out there. Pittsburgh, though, is going to win this one. That's going to be it for today's episode, guys. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.